Hello and welcome everyone to this video lesson on adult learning principles created by the Department of Medical Education for the purpose of online faculty development program. So before I go into the discussion of adult learning principles, uh, here is a short background information about the topic. As teachers of higher education, we should have a basic understanding of how adults learn. Why? The reason for this is unless we know who our learners are and what they are going to learn, how they are going to learn, we cannot deliver the concepts clearly to our learners in a more meaningful manner. Hence, it is essential for any higher education teacher to understand the characteristics of their learners so, so that it will help them to frame appropriate instructional strategies to deliver the concepts or to deliver the selected content. Because adult learners bring experiences and self-awareness to learning that younger learners do not. That is the difference between the adult learners and the younger learner, the children. To understand adult learning, we should understand the learning domains, the learning styles of our learners, and how and why adults learn. That is more important. So with this background information, let me move on to the objectives of this session. The following are the objectives of this session. At the end of this session, the learner shall be able to define learning, define andragogy, describe the characteristics of adult learners with reference to their learning styles, and describe principles of adult learning with reference to learning theories, uh, explain the adult learning cycle, and apply the principles of adult learning to training. And I take this opportunity to request all the viewers of this video lesson to watch till the end and take part in the activities given in this video lesson. So use your learning management system from where you are watching this video to give your responses for the two activities given in this video lesson. And you will also find a self-assessment uh, exercise where you can assess what you have learned through this video. So please follow that and then submit your responses to the faculty assigned to you. Now, let us derive the meaning, or let us see what is the meaning of learning, or what does it mean to learn. So there are many definitions provided by educational psychologists, and here I'm going to present you with two popular definitions. One provided by Noy 2008. He says, learning is a relatively permanent change in human capabilities that is not a result of growth process. At the same time, Dr. Robert Gagne is a popular educational psychologist, defines learning as a change in human disposition or capability that persists over a period of time and is not simply ascribable to process of growth. Both this definition says, or we can understand that learning is a relatively permanent change in a person's knowledge or behavior due to experience. These definitions have three components in them. One is the duration of the change is long term rather than short term. Second, the locus of the change is the content and the structure of knowledge in memory or the behavior of the learner. Third one, the cause of the change is the learner's experience in the environment rather than due to fatigue or motivation or physical condition or physiological intervention. Malcolm Knowles, who is considered as the father of adult education, defines learning as the process of gaining knowledge and expertise. So now let us see how the learning process takes place, or what is the or how do people learn, how people learn new information. Every second we are learning some new information, knowingly or unknowingly. Okay. So what makes us to learn this new information that is surrounded by us? This is none other than our sense organs. If our sense organs are sharp and effective, definitely anyone can be a good learner, because it is our sense organs that is responsible for our learning. Why? Because our sense organs collect information from our environment which contributes for our learning. We use our sense organs to gather and respond to the information that is available in our environment or that is surrounded by us, which aids our survival. The five senses, that is sight, the five sense organs, the five sense organs, that is sight, taste, touch, hearing, and smell, collect information about our environment that are interpreted by the brain. So we make sense of this information based on previous experience and by the combination of the information from each of the senses. We respond almost automatically to most sensory information. Such such response is important for survival in our environment. So each sense provides different information which is combined and interpreted by our brain. Our dominant sense is sight, and hearing is our most sensitive sense. Hence, the more we train our sense organs appropriately, the more they function effectively. This subsequently leads to effective learning. So the point here is that it is the sense organs that are responsible for collecting information from our surroundings, and this information is processed into knowledge depending on how our brain processes it based on our previous experience and other factors. So that is the point we need to understand here. So sense organs collect information, process it, and convert it into knowledge. Right. So it is the sense organs that are responsible for our learning and for information processing. Now, coming to the domains of learning, there are three domains of learning. Educators have determined that most adults, including the adolescents and children, learn best by experiencing a blend of activities that promote the three learning domains, that is cognitive, affective, and psychomotor skills. Cognitive refers to knowledge or a body of subject matter. Affective domain refers to attitudes and beliefs, and psychomotor domain refers to physical activities, or psychomotor refers to practical application. So cognitive deals with how a student acquires, processes, and utilizes the knowledge. It is the thinking domain. This domain focuses on intellectual skills and is familiar to educators. Bloom's taxonomy is frequently used to describe the increasing complexity of cognitive skills as students move forward from a beginner to more advanced level in their knowledge. So Bloom's taxonomy proceeds like this. It starts with knowledge, proceeds with comprehension, goes with application, then proceeds to analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Cognitive domain is the core of the learning domain. The other two domains, that is affective and psychomotor, require at least some of the cognitive components. Without the cognitive component, the other two domains cannot be achieved easily, or it's not possible sometimes. Affective domain focuses on the development of attitude and emotions. Affective domain is critical for learning, but usually it is not specifically addressed. This domain focuses on attitude, motivation, willingness to participate, valuing what is being learned, and ultimately incorporating the discipline values into real life. Psychomotor Psychomotor domain focuses on performing sequences of motor activities to a specified level of accuracy, smoothness, rapidity, or force. Underlying the motor activity is cognitive understanding. So without proper cognitive understanding, the psychomotor skills cannot be executed or cannot be performed there. Now, coming to the learning styles. So what are learning styles? Educational psychologists say individual differences do exist among learners in their learning styles. That is, individual differences exist in learning styles among learners. The three primary learning styles are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And one more learning style, which is considered as the third learning style, that is read and write learning style. So together, you can broadly classify them into, categorize them into four. That is visual learning, visual learners, auditory learners, read and write learners, and kinesthetic learners. Visual learners prefer images, pictures, diagrams, films, and videos or demonstrations for their learning. Auditory learners learn best through the process of listening and talking. Read and write learners are verbal learners who learn best by reading and writing. Kinesthetic learners are learners who learn by doing. They are do and learners. Educational psychologists say that we retain approximately 10% of what we see, 32% of what we see and hear, and 90% of what we see, hear, and do. We all have the capability to learn using all the learning styles, all the four learning styles, but are usually dominate in one. But we usually have some learning style as a predominant one, or sometimes more than one. So bimodal learners use more than two learning styles, and multimodal learners can learn effectively using more than two or more learning styles. Next. So after having understood all the learning, the three domains of learning and learning style, now you can find a web link in the uh, learning management system in the under the assignment section. Please click the link and provide your answer. Once you give your answer, honestly, you will come to know what kind of learner you are or what is your predominant learning style. So this is your first activity. Please complete this activity and forward your response to your faculty. Next, let us see who are adults. What are their characteristics and why adults are called as adults. Now let us see how adults learn. And so before seeing how adults learn, you have to understand the characteristics of adult learners. So adult learners have the following characteristics. One is the control over learning. Adult learners tend to be self-directed in their lives. To meet this need, training programs should try to include adult learners in the planning while planning their training program, because adult learners are self-directed. The next characteristics of adult learners is adult learners usually have high motivation to learn. Since most adult learning is voluntary or optional, adult learners make personal choices to attend training even when such training is tied to professional development of job skills. Trainers do not need to spend a lot of time trying to motivate adult learners, but can concentrate on facilitating the learning that adults are already motivated to pursue. So this is one thing that we should understand, that adult learners usually have high motivation to learn. And the third characteristics of adult learner is pragmatic in learning. Adult learners are pragmatic in their learning, because adult learners are motivated to learn information that is immediately applicable to their situation and needs. To meet this need, Program content must be relevant to the application needs of the learners. Then the next characteristic of adult learners is learning may be a secondary role. For most adult learners, the student role is a minor or secondary aspect of their lives. Because of multiple roles, most adults have far less time and energy to read, study, or learn. Adult education programs require flexibility and more learning time. Resistance to change. Resistant to change. Learning often involves changes in attitude or actions. Adults tend to be somewhat resistant to such change and may be comfortable doing things the way they have done them in the past. So the next characteristic is adult learners are more diverse. Adult learners are diverse in terms of age, background, training, and experience, and much more than traditional age learners. Training programs must allow for a variety of learning styles and use different training methods, allowing more time for interaction between adults to allow learners to network to share perspectives and experiences. Draw on past experiences in learning. The next characteristics is very important. So adult learners always draw past experiences in their learning during their learning process. Adult learners tend to link any new learning to their previous experience. They evaluate the validity of new ideas and concepts in light of how the idea or concept fits their learning, fits their experience. Trainers should take advantage of adult learners' experience and help the adult learners link new ideas to previous learning and encourage discussion on how new ideas fit the experience of learners. Learning often self-initiated. That is the next uh, characteristics of adult learning. Adults often recognize a need and will initiate learning on their own without stimulus from outside sources. And the last characteristics is learning is aimed at an immediate goal. Adults often engage in learning to solve a problem or to achieve a solution. They are often not interested in the broad picture, but instead, what specific information from training that they can apply immediately in the workplace. Now let us see the difference between what is the difference between how children learn and how adults learn, or otherwise it is andragogy versus pedagogy. How is adult learning different? Adult learners are they differ from child learners in 6 respects. Malcolm Knowles, an American practitioner of adult education, popularized the concept of adult learning as a theory and model in the 1970s. He is also known as father of andragogy. So andragogy is otherwise called as the science and art of teaching adult learners. Pedagogy is the science and art of teaching children. Most of us are more familiar with the term pedagogy as the process of helping children learn, which is also called as the art and science of helping children learn. Andragogy is the art and science of helping adults learn. Educating adults involves understanding adult learning principles. So here I would like to mention it is Malcolm Knowles in 1970 coined the word andragogy. So how adult learning is different? How adult learning is different? Adult learners are different. It is not like working with children. How adult learning is different from how do children learn? There are many differences. The more prominent is children learn because they are told and expected to learn. They anticipate their learning will help them in the future. They are prone to learning information by rote or memory. They always don't try to comprehend the idea behind, say, for example, 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. They usually don't try to comprehend the idea behind this 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. They are dependent on their teacher or parents to lead the learning. If their activities are not directed by teachers or parents, only what remains is only a confusion. So that will be the end outcome will be only a confusion. So it is children require more direction and guidance from their teachers and parents. The key difference between adults and children is said to be that adults are differently motivated to learn. Although the arguments no longer seem quite so clear, the line described by Malcolm Knowles, was that adult learners differ from child learners in 6 respects. One is the need to know. Why do I need to know this? This is what we have. We should try to answer the adults, because adults always want to know, why should I learn this? Then the second thing is the learner's self-concept. In what way I am responsible for my own decision? Adults want to know in what way they are responsible for their own decisions. The third one is the role of learner's experience. Adults always want to know that what experiences, they want to value the experiences they undergo. That is, I have experiences which I value, and you should also respect. Teachers should respect their values. That is their previous experience. And readiness to learn. Adults need to learn because of their circumstances are changing. So I need to learn, my circumstances are changing. This is the feeling adults usually have. And next, orientation to learning. Learning will help adults deal with the situation which they find themselves. That is, they feel they will have a feeling that learning will help me deal with the situation in which I find myself. Motivation. I learn because I want to do that. Then, coming to the principles of adult learning. Adults, these are the 6 principles of adult learning. The first principle says adults are internally motivated and self-directed. Adult learners usually will resist learning when they feel others are imposing information, ideas, or actions on them. Adults need to be free to direct themselves. So the teachers or the providers must actively involve participants in the learning process and serve as facilitators rather than didactic teachers. They must guide participants rather than supply them with facts. They must get participants' perspectives and give them the flexibility to work on projects that reflect their interests. The next principle is adults need to draw upon their life experiences and knowledge. Adults have accumulated a wealth of life experiences and knowledge from school, work, and family life that can be a source. Those experiences can be a source for their own learning as well as the learning of others. Trainers must value this experience and help adults connect their experience to the theories and concepts that are introduced for their learning. Trainers also should encourage collaboration and idea sharing among adult learners. The next principle is adults are goal oriented. Adults appreciate learning when it is tied to specific professional or personal goals. They desire well-organized experiences that will help them attain their goals. Hence, teachers should identify learning objectives, follow clear agendas, and show participants how the activities are helping them to achieve their goals. The next principle is adults are relevancy oriented. Adults must be able to see how learning connects to their work. Trainers should be able to facilitate appropriate connections. They should demonstrate how the theory and content of the learning relates to participants' work. That is, relates to the learner's work. So the next principle is adults are practical. Adults will want to focus on those aspects of their learning that will help them to solve problems in their world. So they always wanted to be a solution finder. They like hands-on exercise that stimulate real-world situations. So faculty or the trainers must design concrete learning activities and learners to see explicitly how the information will be helpful to them on the job. The next principle is adults need to be shown respect. Adults need to be given a strong voice during their during their learning experience or during their teaching learning encounters. Trainers should establish a learning atmosphere where adults are treated as equals and encouraged to share their opinions, experiences, and knowledge. So, with this, we can the point here is to be that is to be understood is that adults are internally motivated, they are goal oriented, and they seek relevance for their learning experience, and they always want to be practical, that they love to have hands on, and they also expect respect from their trainers or from their faculty. So the next, let's move on to the theories that help us to understand these principles or the theories that promote adult learning. So there are various theories. Adult learning theories are related to several educational, social, philosophical, and psychological uh, bases or foundations. Most accessibly, these were clustered by novels. Malcolm novels have consolidated all these theories, and he has put many of the ingredients of these theories into his adult learning principle, that is the so-called andragogy. So most of the Malcolm novels inputs for his andragogy are derived from these theories. So he clarifies saying that adults learn best and their attitudes towards learning can be nurtured when we follow these uh, the theories of learning, adult learning theories. There are many theories explaining the adult learning process, as I already mentioned. Here, I would like to focus on the three major theories, that is behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. So behaviorism and all these theories, that is behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism, are the three broad learning theories most often utilized in the creation of instructional environments or instructional uh, themes. These theories, however, were developed in a time when learning was not impacted through technology. Over the last 20 years, technology has recognized how we live, how we communicate, and how we learn. Now, it's almost the technology that decides how we learn. So, cognitive theories, now let us see how these theories contribute or what these theories say about learning. First, behaviorism. Behaviorism equates learning with changes in the form of observable performance. Learning is accomplished when a proper response is demonstrated following the presentation of a specific environmental stimulus. For example, when presented with a flashcard showing the equation, that is 2 plus 4 is equal to a question mark, the learner replies with the answer of 6. 2 plus 4 is equal to 6. This is the response from the learner. The equation is the stimulus and the proper answer is the associated response. The key elements are the stimulus, the response, and the association between the two. The primary concern here is how the association between the stimulus and the response is made, strengthened, and maintained. Now, let us see what cognitivism says. Cognitivism says that learning occurs through internal processing of information. Whereas behaviorism says new behaviors or changes in behavior are acquired through association between stimuli and response. Cognitivism says learning occurs through internal processing of information. Cognitive theories stress the acquisition of knowledge and internal mental structure. Cognitive theories focus on the conceptualization of students' learning process and address the issue of how information is received, organized, stored, and retrieved by the mind. Basically, it is related to information processing, storing, and retrieving. So learning is concerned not so much with what learners do, but with what they know and how they come to acquire it. Knowledge acquisition is described as a mental activity that entails internal coding and structuring by the learner. The learner is viewed as a very active participant in the learning process. Coming to the third learning theory, that is constructivism. It says we construct our own knowledge of the world based on individual experiences. Constructivism model, in this model, that is in constructivism, learning is built on previous experience and learners are characterized as active constructors of learning. It stresses experiential learning, that is problem-based learning, for example, and is a developmental, that is, it is constructive. So it is both. It stresses experiential learning and is developmental in nature rather than a repetitive process. Students actively construct or develop their own learning from the range of experiences available to them. Therefore, the teaching needs to be planned to provide the important experiences to allow these constructs to be made. The link to prior knowledge is also crucial. So it is based on the previous experience, the learners construct new knowledge based on the new teaching learning encounters. Okay. Although there has been controversy as to which of these, now this will there will you may ask a question. So which of these theories should I follow, sir? Is it whether I should stick on to one theory or all the theory or few of these theories? So although there has been a controversy, so I mean as to which of these theories of learning should dictate teaching strategies, most educators have suggested that all these theories apply to learning process and that none of them should be considered to the exclusion of the others when teaching. In short, it should be a blend mixture of all these theories, considering the learning, okay, taking into consideration the learning objectives. Okay, so it's a blend mixture of all these theories. So recognition of these theories allows the application of various strategies for achieving learning objectives based on the environment, the change to be achieved, and the background of the students. Okay. Now, having said all these things, gone through the characteristics of the learner, adult learning principles, and the different learning theories, here is an activity for you. An article titled Adult Learning Theories, Implications for Learning and Teaching in Medical Education is posted in the assignment section of your learning management system. Please read, give a scholarly reading to this article and reflect, give your reflection in the assignment section and submit it to your faculty. Okay, so this is your second activity. Now let us move on to the next slide. So there are different factors that influence the adult learning behavior. So these are the, now we are going to see the major factors that influence adult learning behavior. The first factor is uh, the, the learning is affected by four major categories of factors. The first being the learner's characteristics. So learners differ all learners differ in their individual characteristics. That is, individual differences exist among the learners in terms of their growth, maturity, intelligence, motivation level, anxiety level, their interest level, aptitude towards the subject, aptitude towards the learning, and their creativity, nature of creativity, their higher order thinking skills, and their span of attention. So these are some of the learners' characteristics. So learners are unique. No learner can be same. Learners are not same in their individual, characteristics. They differ in all these areas. So the next category is the learn environment. So this where the teaching and learning encounters happen. This is more important. That also decides or influences the learning behavior. Whether it happens in a classroom or it happens in the playground or it happens in bedside or happens in a ward or in an operation theater or in community or in a laboratory, etc. or in library. So it can be any environment. So learning environment also influences the learning behavior of the. So what needs to be understood here, we need to understand here is that learners should have a conducive learning environment so that you can stimulate learning, direct them appropriately, and guide them with the help of the learning environment. And the third category is the learning methods. Different learners follow different learning method. As teachers, we are also responsible for suggesting appropriate learning method to our learners so that they become better learners and they also learn how to learn. Okay, so some learners use rote learning, some learners use meaningful learning, some learners always associate their previous learning with the current learning, which is called as associative learning. Some learners use the whole learning method. Some learners split their learning content into different components and then use part learning method. Some learners use spaced and method of learning, and some learners use massed learning methods. So these are the categories that influence the learning. And the next category is the nature of learning materials, the learning resources we use, or the learning resources the learners use for their learning. So always we should see the learn. Always we should make sure that learners use meaningful learning resources. So learning resources sometimes becomes nonsensical, and it also the length of the materials also matters here. So if the length of the material is very lengthy, learners will not, tend to show more interest in using that because it consumes a lot of time and energy. And the complexity of the learning materials also accounts for the learning behavior, influences the learning behavior, complexity or the difficulty level of the materials. So learners' characteristics, learning environment, learning methods, and nature of learning materials influences the learning behavior of adult learners. Now, next thing is we need to understand for every process, every phenomena has a cycle, isn't it? So here also the adult learning also has a cycle. Here I'm going to show you the adult learning cycle described by Kolb's. Uh, Kolb has described adult learning cycle in 4 stages, which he describes as adult learning, experiential learning. Experiential learning. So what is this Kolb's learning cycle? Adults learn by analyzing and applying new information to their own own life. Learning is more effective when it is designed with this cycle in mind. So if you are, say, for example, you are going to design a learning um, encounter or a learning session for your learners, if these 4 stages are there in your mind, definitely you can design an effective learning cycle for your learners. The 4-stage learning cycle proposed by David Cole explains that an individual learner moves through a spiral of experience or spiral of immediate experience, which leads to observations and reflections on the experience. These reflections are then absorbed and linked with previous knowledge and translated into abstract concepts or theories, which result in new ways and actions to adjust to the experience that can be tested and explored. Now let us see what these four stages mean. The first stage is the concrete experience. This stage of the learning cycle emphasizes personal involvement with people in everyday situations. In this stage, the learner would tend to rely more on feelings than on a systematic approach to problems and situations. In a learning situation, the learner relies on the ability to be open minded and adaptable to change. For example, a young man performs an initial interview for the first time. Okay, this is the example. A young man performs an initial interview for the first time. Coming to the next stage, that is reflective observation. In this stage of the learning cycle, people understand ideas and situations from different points of view. In a learning situation, the learner would rely on patience, objectivity, and careful judgment, but would not necessarily take any action. The learner would rely on their own thoughts and feelings in forming opinions. In the example that what we saw in the concrete experience, that is, the young man performs an initial interview for the first time. Here, in reflective observation, after finishing the young man, finishing the interview, the young man reflects on what they did, makes observation, and discusses how they went with their interviewer, how he went with the interviewer. So the third one is the abstract conceptualization. In this stage, learning involves using theories, logic, and ideas rather than feelings to understand problems or situations. Typically, the learner relies on systematic planning and develops theories and ideas to solve problems. In the example, the young man then thinks about the interview process and their performance and tries to make links between previous experience of interviewing or any theories or knowledge they can apply. Next, the last stage, that is the active experimentation. Learning in this stage, that is this stage, active experimentation, takes an active form, experimenting with changing situations. The learner would take a practical approach and be concerned with what really works as opposed to simply watching a situation. In this example, the young man considers ways to improve and tries out methods and strategies based on the previous stages of cycle. So, learning is more effective when it is designed with this cycle in mind. Now, so let us conclude this session. So, learners come to the class with the defined expectations. The success of alert learners requires a great degree of responsibility from the teacher. Hence, the teachers of higher education should equip themselves with the knowledge and application of principles of adult learning and apply the same for planning and designing their instructional systems. Now, please go to the assessment part of the learning management system and test yourself to what extent you have utilized this video. And there will also be a feedback link. Please provide your feedback about the video lesson so that we can improve on this video lesson. So use the assessment link to assess yourself. And if your score is less than 70 or 70 percentage, again, you have to retake this test to fulfill the eligibility requirements. Okay, so these are the references from where I got these are the sources for this video lesson. Thank you very much, and wish you all the best.